This video is going over Quidditch at conventions, festivals, and other events. Some of the kind of events that you can expect to promote Quidditch at, and also some tips to help you do so successfully. So why bring Quidditch to other events? So outside of your practice and tournaments, why should you bring this sport to these kinds of places? So first is it raises awareness in your community. This can be used to help you recruit people, teach the sport to others who you might be able to then play against, and also increase attendance at tournaments. So exhibiting at an event can be a great way of promoting that you have a tournament coming up next month and those attendees might want to come see it. It's also a good way of just letting people know what Quidditch is. A lot of Quidditch players do find that the first time they meet people and they are talking about the sport, the questions that they're getting are, what is Quidditch? How do I fly? What are you talking about? A lot of confusion. So using an event like this to promote the sport and explain it can really help educate the public so that the next time you run into these people or the next time that you are recruiting in the area, every conversation you have doesn't have to start with, but how does the snitch work? Because they remember, oh yes, this is that sport that we saw at that convention, was a lot of fun. So it really helps to educate people on what the sport even is. Second, team bonding, meeting others in your community. So if you usually play Quidditch with people and you're used to seeing them at practice and tournaments, getting your teammates outside of that into something like a book launch or a comic convention can be fun to spend a half day or a weekend with them, getting to know them better and just getting a lot closer to them outside of a normal practice session. As well, a lot of our events that we organize, we take volunteers from different teams. So if you are really close with your own team but you don't know any other teams or Quidditch players in your community, this can be a great way to get to know people on other teams, learn from them, and also just build relationships there to help with planning future practices or tournaments together with them. Selling merchandise and raising money. So some places will let you sell merchandise. This could be team jerseys, t-shirts with your team logo on it, stickers, you could promote your Indiegogo or your crowdsourcing campaign, or you can even facilitate donations there. Obviously this depends on the event. You're going to want to talk to the organizer to see what you are allowed to do. But if you're trying to raise money to get new jerseys or get you to nationals or regionals, public events can be a great place to do that. This can also give you the opportunity to give back to your community. Some events in your community might be trying to raise money for charities or for rebuilding things. Just having Quidditch be a part of it can help add another entertainment option to the event. And finally, that can help you get into an event for free. So especially a comic convention or anything like that where you would have to pay an admission fee to get in, sometimes you might be able to volunteer for part of a day and explore the convention for free the other half, or you have to do Quidditch all day, but amongst your team or your group, you can divvy up who has to volunteer when so that you can have some free time to check out the event. Different types of events. So there are so many different types of events that you can bring Quidditch to. The one that most people are going to be familiar with are school club fairs or athletic center open houses. So if your team is associated with a school, you probably have taken advantage of the school clubs fair. This is usually the first week of semester, and it will be in a building or outside on a main street. But it'll be a point where all of the student clubs, student groups, athletic teams will be allowed to promote their group and attract new students or returning students. So I highly recommend you take advantage of this. This is a great way to recruit people and to get recognition from your school and the community at large just to support Quidditch. Comic conventions and fantasy festivals, these types of events are often focused on a lot of fandom, and so this may or may not be right for you depending on what you're trying to do, but these often do have a lot of people attend, so it can be a good way to expose your team or the sport to a lot of people at once. 5K races and fitness conventions. There are certain races that are fandom or geeky themed. There are fitness conventions that are not at all fandom themed, but because Quidditch is a sport, they'd be a good place to promote or learn from other fitness groups lots of different types of events like that that you can try to reach out to. Charity fundraisers, like I said before, they might be looking for entertainment for people who are attending, or it might be a charity that's actually really close to your team, something that you want to support because it's in your community. School fun day and gym classes. If you have a connection with a school or you just know of kids in the area who are interested in it, it might be worth partnering with a school for a fun day or to help plan Quidditch in their gym classes. Themed pub crawls. There are a lot of these popping up, so not all of them are quite as reliable. A lot of them seem to be cash grabs, and so I don't necessarily recommend partnering with them, but some do magic themed pub crawls, and Quidditch could be one of the stops along the way. Book launches, anniversary events, and movie releases. So because Quidditch does come from the Harry Potter series, sometimes you can partner with events to have Quidditch content at these things. So one thing that we did was when Cursed Child came out, that was in the Harry Potter series, the midnight launch of the book, a lot of libraries and bookstores wanted to have content or programming to entertain people until midnight came around. So things like that can be a good chance to partner with and entertain people while they're waiting for midnight or for the final product to be released. And finally, private events and birthday parties. So we have helped some teams with this. Some teams have actually been able to book this on their own, which is great. But if people are interested in a private event, so a common thing is we will hear from people who have young kids and they love Harry Potter and they're looking for something for their birthday party to entertain a couple kids. So we've been able to refer teams to go and teach kids how to play Quidditch, and in exchange the birthday party will make a donation to that team to help them get to nationals or buy new jerseys or whatever their financial goals are. Same thing with spelling bees. We've referred a team to help with a spelling bee, so they had a lot of kids that they had to have waiting for their turn to go spell all day, and so between that they had some Quidditch sessions to help the kids burn out some energy while they're waiting for their turn. So usually something like that we would expect a donation for the team, but reach out to our convention coordinator or myself and we can help you navigate that. So types of setup. So the first and most basic is a booth or table. So on the right here, this is a picture from Ryerson Quidditch, and this is at a club's fair. So if you are a player of a school team, you've probably helped out with something like this. Usually it's just a table in an athletic center or on a main road. You should have somewhere really big who you are, what you are, because not everyone is going to be brave enough to approach your table. So from a distance they can read Quidditch, which is usually enough to have them pull in a little more and say, what is this? And that gives you a chance to promote the team. So I also like this picture because it has the school mascot. So if you do notice a school mascot at an event like this, I'd recommend trying to get a picture of them with your booth and then post that on social media. This is usually a good way to get your school to retweet or repost your post, giving you that extra exposure. But these kinds of events, your goal here is very clear. You're trying to attract new players probably. So you want to have a sign-up sheet or a little business card sized handout that has your team name and something about how they can reach you online, or when your next practice is, how you can join the team. Something brief that will lead them to connect with you again later. So on the left here, this was a town was doing a street festival. So this is a free event for people to come to, and we were invited to come and do something at it. So this was a little tiny square of grass in front of a library. There's really not enough space to play, but we brought the hoops kind of as a photo op that people could take pictures with it, and we brought the old style broom. So a lot of people, it drew them just from a distance seeing the hoops and wanting to come closer to see what is this, and then they could take pictures with the broom or the hoops, or they could also practice trying to throw in the hoops themselves. Especially little kids, they really want to try and get the ball in the tallest hoop, so that can sometimes be enough to pull people in from a distance to come learn more. Other types of setup is a demonstration area. So this can vary a lot. So you can see on the left we have an outdoor one. This was at the CNE. And then on the right, this was at a comic convention indoors on carpet. Other demonstration areas, there might be a main stage where you could go up and have a half hour to do a little demonstration of a drill or information. If you have a space like this and you're expecting for people to play, so a beater battle or a snitch drill or even a mini game like a 3-on-3 or a 4x4, we found that you need at least a 30 by 30 foot space, and obviously depending on what you're comfortable with, you might insist on more space than that. So 30 by 30 feet is usually the minimum, and then you're going to want to consider, are there walls to stop balls from flying far away, or is there something nearby that having a volleyball come flying through the air is going to break? Maybe it wouldn't make sense for you to be positioned there. So a lot of kids are more willing to try Quidditch at things like this. Adults are often a little more hesitant. They don't want to look silly. So one of your challenges in a demonstration type area like this is getting adults comfortable enough to join in, or having kids come but also quickly explain the rules so that they don't lose interest. So you can identify what your main goal is and what your target is if you want adults to be there or not. But often to get adults involved, they want to see other people are already doing it, especially other adults. So if your volunteers are adults and they are participating in the drills, that can be enough to pull in adults to try it out. For kids, you want to focus on the basics. So usually you're not playing a full game. You've broken the game down into something more simple like a beater battle. So a beater battle is 2 people participating, 1 versus 1. You have 2 bludgers. They're at opposite ends of your little field. The players start beside the bludgers. You say 3, 2, 1, brooms up. They run up, grab the bludger, and try and hit the other person. So you're not explaining the entire game at once, which is too much information for them. You've really stripped it down to don't get hit by the dodgeball. You're throwing a dodgeball at the other person. Very basic, very quick to explain to little kids. And you can do this with the other positions, so you can just focus on catching the snitch. You can just focus on scoring the ball in the hoops, especially really, really little kids. Oftentimes they are very happy to just focus on throwing the ball in the hoops and taking turns doing that. So it's up to you to kind of see what's working with your participants, but I recommend start with really basics. Don't throw them into a full game right away. Something else you'll notice on the right, we have these little orange bristles on these brooms. So these were made specifically for conventions. We use them, and they're a very small, lightweight PVC pipe, and on the end we've duct taped foam that is in the shape of bristles. So we found a lot of kids, when they are hearing that they're going to play Quidditch, they're very excited to get on a broom and run around to fly. And doing that on just a little PVC pipe is not that exciting for them. So they're much more excited when they have little bristles on it and they feel like they are flying a broom. So that's something that you can kind of try out and see what your public is expecting. But a lot of kids are more excited to run around on a broom than just on a little PVC pipe. So more examples of demonstration areas. You want to come up with a couple drills so that if your numbers are not working, or if, let's say, the participants are not interested in a certain drill, after trying it for a bit, you might want to pivot to something else. And then you also want to establish if you are doing this demonstration area all day for the entire opening of the event, or if you have it scheduled at certain times. If it's scheduled at certain times, there should be a sign nearby, or it should be in the event program so that people know. But you will probably have to explain this to people because not everyone's going to be looking at the schedule. So on the left, this is from Vancouver Fan Expo. This is a concrete floor. And so everyone who's coming, we're not playing a full contact game. Obviously, this is a small area where the focus is on passing the ball around or throwing the dodgeball. We're not trying to do physical contact between guests. Out front here on the left, you can see we have a booth. So this tablecloth was donated by Row West. It's great. It has very, very big, it says quidditchcanada.com. So that's what we're communicating to people. And then on the desk itself, we have little handouts from the two teams that were volunteering with us. So this is Vancouver Vipertooth and the Storm Crows. So we have handouts if people are interested in joining. But we also have a sign-up sheet. So Storm Crows was interested in doing a youth Quidditch or some sort of thing to get kids involved. So we had a sign-up list where parents could write down their email address and their name and how old their kid was. So you want to have something to record that information because you don't want to have to remember it or be writing it on a little piece of paper. You want to actually have a designated place to collect information that you will need. The other problem with a setup like this, even though it looks great, these side panels, these fabric, are actually just fabric. So if a kid is throwing the ball outside of the area, the fabric doesn't do much to stop the ball from going. So this is also a consideration of the area that you will need someone to retrieve balls or that you may not be able to play at certain times if something is happening on the other side of that curtain. On the right here, this was at a museum that was doing a wizard themed event, and because the museum was very small and had a small capacity, they had sold more tickets than could fit in the building, so people had to wait outside around the block like this for their turn to go in. And this, in front of the museum, there was this grassy area where we had hoops set up and we were doing drills with kids. So while people are standing in line waiting to get in, we were able to pull kids who are waiting in line, have them come do some drills with us and entertain them, and then all the people who are waiting to get inside can watch us and be entertained. So this here, I'm just going to focus on one event. We've done this kind of setup a couple times and it works pretty well for us. So there's no designated, you have to do this kind of event if you're going to a comic convention or a public event. You can always come up with new things depending on what you want to do, but this is something that's worked for us. So feel free to copy it or adapt it and let us know what works for you. So on the right here, this is a screenshot from their floor plan of the comic convention. This is a much smaller corner where they have a family zone, so a lot of kids programming that's happening. And you can see in the orange square that says Quidditch Canada, this is our designated area. So we do mini drills and mini games in this little area. And in front of it, so at the bottom, you can see a black rectangle with two X's in it. This is a table. So we have a booth out front where we have information. Sometimes the event will do like a scavenger hunt. So little kids have a little program where they're trying to write down answers or get stamps for visiting certain areas. So you might have someone there helping fill that out or answer questions or direct people to washrooms, because even though you don't work at the event, people are going to come to you looking for answers for things like that. So what you're seeing here, the red X's are essential volunteers. So at minimum, you must have at least 4 to run this kind of area. So what you have is someone sitting at the table who's answering questions. Then in the orange box, you have a volunteer who's like a head referee. They're running the drills, they're explaining the drills to the kids, they are subbing out the kids and making sure that everything is fair. Outside of the box, on the top right and the bottom left, you see there's a red X on each of those. These are the positions behind the hoops. So about a meter or 2 behind the hoops, we like to have someone stationed there to catch the balls and retrieve them to throw them back in. So one reason for this is because there's always kids who will throw really hard and the balls will go flying really far away. And it makes it hard to do drills if you're having to run and go catch balls repeatedly. So that's what we like to have there. And then the green line that you can see, this is where I will put masking tape on the floor sometimes. So depending on the crowds, you might have a lot of kids waiting for their turn to participate in your drill. So you can just let them gather where they want, but oftentimes this will block people from asking questions or block other kids from attending. They'll just walk by your booth. And so it's nice to have a designated area for people to wait, but also it helps them know their place in line, that they don't start fighting because someone is butting them, and it gives a visual signal to the person running the drills if people are lined up and waiting. So are there more people waiting? Should I end this mini drill and cycle in some new people? What kind of timing, what kind of crowds do we have? So the purple X's are more ideal. So if you have more volunteers, this is the ideal number. So red and purple X's together, that's the total number that you would want. Red is at minimum, you need those people. So if you have more volunteers, it's nice to have 2 people in the orange box. So 2 people working on drills. So this could be one person talking to each team, or one person talking and the other person helping set up or answer side questions to kids that are trying to understand. You still have the people outside of the box retrieving balls and returning them. And then bonus is having 2 people at the table in front of the area. So one person to answer questions, maybe another person to sell merch, or another person to deal with other inquiries. And then just outside the entrance there, so just by the green line, having a person standing there to actually talk to people as they go by, and also direct people to join the line and stay within the line if they're waiting for their turn. So this is the ideal setup. I find this works pretty well, especially at this event. We found there's a lot of people and you start getting crowds pretty quickly. So this is a pretty good setup for getting kids in, quickly explain the rules, get them to try the game, and cycle out. So something else, while people are waiting behind the green taped line, you can get pennies on them, you can hand them a broom, you can have a volunteer going over the rules and pointing things out to them. Maybe there's a kid coming in costume and they have a sword, and you can say, oh, that's a great sword, but you actually can't come in until you go give that sword to your parents to hang on to. This is going to be an injury. So just having someone to prep them is really great. In the picture on the top left, you can see the red curtain fence. So behind that, we actually have benches for parents to sit and wait for their kids. So this is great to get parents out of the way and not interfering with it, but also have them within the line of sight if a kid panics and needs their parents. A problem with this kind of area is some parents will try and ditch their kids and use you as a free babysitter. So that's where it also helps to have a volunteer keep an eye on what parents are abandoning kids and what parents are not. So just to clarify, this is not a babysitting center. We're happy for your kid to try, but please don't leave your kids unattended. It can also help to have a sign nearby if you have scheduled time. So the snitch will be here at 2 o'clock, because sometimes you'll get repeated questions of, oh, when can I do this again, or when can I do that? And if you're only doing it at designated times, that really helps. As well, in an area like this, you can see there's other events happening in this room. Knowing the other booths and what they have planned, that you want to plan your programming around that. So there's no point planning a snitch drill at the same time that there's a dance party on the main stage, or if the Renaissance Festival next door is doing a sword demonstration. So try and coordinate with them and learn from that. At the end of the event, if you find that there's a problem with the layout, so maybe you found balls were flying to the next booth and the next booth was getting really angry because they were worried about their booth being destroyed by dodgeballs, that's something worth mentioning to the organizer so that if you come back another year, that they can place you in a different location. So on the bottom left here, this is a picture from Disney World. I've stolen this for a lot of our really popular events because I find it works really great at crowd management. Having tape on the floor to quickly mark lines or directions to walk in. Not everyone's going to listen to it, but it can be a great way, especially if you have a volunteer there, to say, yep, and we're going to go all the way to the green line here, and it just direct the flow of traffic and have kids wait in a designated spot so that they are patiently waiting their turn, and it's very clear who's next in line, and you're not bringing in a kid who hasn't been waiting in line ahead of someone who has. Types of setup. So if you're really ambitious and you have a lot of space, you can actually organize an official game or a full tournament. So this was at a festival. They had a lot of grass space, and so you can see we have a game happening here on the on the hill at the side, you can see the attendees watching the game. And then just in front of me here, we have two commentators at a table speaking into a microphone to announce what's happening. So at an event, if you're at a comic convention or a festival, a lot of the people attending might not know that Quidditch is a real sport, and they might be confused at what's happening. So having a commentator who can explain what's going on will really help the people watching engage more and avoid confusion. So being able to explain, the ref has made a call, this is what's happening, or you can see after they get hit by the red ball, they're going back and touching the hoops. This is how the bludger works. You can explain what's going on. If you don't have a microphone, I'd recommend working with the organizer to have them print up a schedule or a poster explaining the game. Just something to kind of say the positions or how the game is played. And if you have a schedule, then people know what times to come back for games. And then you can also just write on the poster at the end of the game who won, so that people, if they're keeping track throughout the day, they can get invested and excited about seeing the games and how the day progresses. So you also might be making a presentation or a panel, or you might not be having a booth or anything. People might have invited you just to do a presentation. So this is an event that I did that was a Sports Events Congress. So it's a sports tourism convention. So this is very different from a comic convention. If you're doing a panel or a presentation at a comic convention, your presentation is probably going to be on what is Quidditch, how is it different from the Harry Potter series. People are going to be fans, and they're probably there on their free time. This is their entertainment for the weekend or the day. Whereas an event like this, these people are not here for entertainment, they're here for their day job. They work for tourism associations or any sort of athletic groups, so they're here more for informational. So they're not as interested in you talking about how is this different from the Harry Potter series. They're more interested in, if we host an event like this, what are the requirements of the field? What is the need of the tournament director? Who are you bringing to play at a tournament like this? Why would we want to bid on an event? So this panel that I was on was on alternative sports, and it was myself, someone from Ultimate Frisbee, and someone from Table Hockey Canada. And we were each talking about, when we organize tournaments or championships or whatever the equivalent is, what do we look for in venues and what do our players look for? So make sure you know your audience when you're presenting, because you don't want to bore them or talk about something not relevant. At the end of sessions like this, it's good to have a Q&A, and that way someone can ask you if they have other questions or things that you didn't cover, and where they can get more information. Money. So some events will charge admission, others are free. You should know this because it affects a couple things. One, it gives you an idea of the people coming. Do they just happen to come across you, or have they come to make a day of this event? So if someone's coming to be entertained, they probably have higher expectations than someone just passing through. It can also give you information on, when you have your volunteers show up, are they going to be able to just come and find you and help you out, or are you going to have to meet them outside of a gate somewhere to give them their pass? Some events will try to charge you for a booth space or an exhibitor fee. I'd be really careful about this. Please reach out to our convention coordinator if you're looking for help with navigating this. But depending on what you're doing, I don't necessarily believe that you should be paying a fee. So if you just have a table and you're selling merchandise, yeah, the venue might want you to pay a fee to use that space. However, if you are adding programming to their event, you're adding an attraction, I would argue that you should not be paying for space. So if you're running Quidditch sessions, maybe if you're participating in a panel, definitely if you're organizing a Quidditch tournament, you should not be paying to use the space that is happening there. You should also consider other costs. So if they are expecting you to bring hoops, you probably have to bring a vehicle to bring the hoops and balls and the brooms. So is there going to be parking there? Is it nearby? Is it free? Will they reimburse you? If you're expected to travel out of town, is the event going to reimburse your gas or give you a gas card to help you get around? Are they going to provide accommodations? Are they going to provide lunch or snacks? These are all things to consider ahead of time and try to plan for. I'd also recommend negotiating this kind of stuff before you book it. And we have a convention coordinator who can help you do this, or if you want to do it on your own, you're totally fine. But just recognize that you're setting a precedent. So if you do 1 year and then you're not interested anymore and another team tries to work with this event, you've set a level of expectation that might cause problems for the next team that's trying to work with them. So before the event, you have to recruit volunteers. It's very unlikely that you're going to be going and doing an event on your own. So if this is a school clubs fair and you're trying to recruit new players, it's not unreasonable that your existing players should come help out or contribute to building, a sign or something to help with this kind of event. Schedule people, tell them when they need to arrive, when they need to leave, give them breaks to go to the bathroom, brief them on what you're trying to do. So you're trying to promote the upcoming tournament, or you're trying to recruit players for our practice this weekend, or you're trying to sell t-shirts because we're trying to raise money to get to regionals. Something like that. Make sure they know what you're doing, but schedule them. Where can you find volunteers? Obviously, I said people who are on your team, but you can also recruit from alumni, you can recruit friends to help you with this, and you can also recruit from other teams. So if you're doing a comic convention or a book launch, it might be a good chance to reach out to other people in your area who are also interested in Quidditch and seeing if they are interested in working with you and your team to plan this event. So before the event, equipment. How are you getting this equipment? So are you borrowing this equipment from your team? Does your team require that you sign out this equipment? Or is the building the equipment is in, is it only accessible at certain times during the week? Can you drop off equipment days before the event? So is there storage there? Can you pick it up right when the event is over, or do you have to schedule it? So I know there's some events we've done where you actually have to schedule when the car arrives to pick up the equipment at the end of the last day, because it's just chaos with people trying to move. So make sure you know all this stuff before you start so you can plan accordingly. Online content. So the event organizer probably has some form of online content. They might be sending out a newsletter on programming. They might have a website with a map or a schedule or information on the sessions. And they also probably have a social media account or a hashtag. You can provide images to them ahead of time and say that they can use that to promote Quidditch or your team or your panel or whatever your session is. If there is a hashtag for the event, it helps the day of or the day before the event to post and say, hey, we're going to be at booth XYZ, and then use the hashtag so that anyone attending this event knows that you're there and is interested to come see you. What will people be searching online after they see your booth? So if someone is walking through the event and they see your booth or they see your demonstration, is it enough that they know what to search? Do they understand that you're promoting Quidditch? Do they understand that you're promoting your specific team? What keywords are they seeing on your booth that they're going to search? And then if they do that, go check your social media page. What are they going to see? What are the last couple posts that you did? What is the banner image on your page? What are they going to find? Do you have an event page on your Facebook that they can RSVP to? Is there information on your next practice? What will they get if they go and search you afterwards? Put in writing what you expect from the organizer. So it's not enough to say, yeah, we'll take a booth at your event. Have in writing, we're expecting that this booth will have a table. It will have 2 chairs. It will have access to a power outlet. Anything that you are going to assume you have, just get it in writing because it might not be straightforward. Can you get early access to set up? So if you have to measure or carry an equipment and the event opens at 9 a.m., is it open at 6 a.m. if you go to set up? What if you come the night before to set up? What time are you expecting to show up? Because there might be someone who has to unlock a door or a gate to get you in. Are you going to be reimbursed with parking? Are they going to give you a parking pass that you should use before you come into park? Is there drinkable water? Is there a washroom that you can use? Is it different than the one that the attendees are using? So depending on the event, you might be considered volunteer staff, and so there might be actual change rooms or washrooms that you can use that you don't have to wait in line with the general public. Booth tips. Engage with attendees. So if you are sitting at a booth or in front of your demonstration area and you see people walking by, greet them. Say hello. Ask them if they would like to play Quidditch. Maybe start a conversation with them. A lot of people will just kind of walk by booths. They won't come directly up to you and say, sell me what you are selling. You have to kind of pull them in. So being friendly and just making eye contact and waving to people can sometimes be enough to have them come in and ask you more and get engaged in a session or in learning about what you're doing. So be interested in what they're saying or asking. If someone says to you, oh, Quidditch, like that Harry Potter thing. Yes, a million people have said this to you that day. I know you're probably not all that enthusiastic for them to say this, but watch out on your demeanor, because if you come off annoyed or you're making fun of them, they're not going to feel good and interested in joining your team or engaging more. So even if they say like, oh, I know Quidditch, I've read the Harry Potter books, you don't have to snap and say like, actually you don't, it's very different. You don't get defensive, just say like, yeah, it is based on the Harry Potter books, but we've changed it a bit. Would you like to come try? Something friendly, and then educate them that way. Tell them a bit about your team or the event that you're promoting. So I know sometimes if someone shows interest in Quidditch, it's very tempting to go into a long spiel about this is Quidditch, this is how it's different, this is the history, this is blah, 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 blah. And you can kind of overwhelm people. So try and keep it a little shorter. Practice your elevator pitch. So it's like, yes, we are blank Quidditch team and we're recruiting players. Would you like to try this drill? Would you like to do blank? Keep it a very short soundbite so that if they're interested in more, then you can have a conversation. But you're not scaring them away with an overflow of information the first time you talk to them. Keep your phone away. This is very hard because we're all addicted to our phones, but also if you are organizing the appearance at this fair or convention, you might want to keep your phone on you because volunteers are calling or texting you if there's issues, but try not to stand in front of your booth talking on the phone or sit at your booth texting all day, because this really is not inviting to people walking by. So you want to put your phone away and make eye contact with people. You're not sitting there texting on your phone all day, because people are not going to approach you, or they're going to be hesitant to approach you because you look uninterested or busy. Give them something to take. So a handout with your social media information on it, or the date and time and location of your practice, something that they can Google later. Something small that they can take with them is really good. So keep in mind, what are you trying to do? You're just trying to get them to come to practice. Well, you probably don't have to print an 8.5 by 11 full color sheet of paper that says join our Quidditch team. You could probably print a sheet black and white, which is cheaper, and cut it up into smaller pieces to hand out to people, and that way it saves money. So try and remember what you are trying to promote and use that to decide on what kind of handout you're giving. As well, something they can easily photograph. So if you have a banner, it doesn't have to be professionally printed. You can paint it or draw it, but if you have something up that people can take a picture and search later, some very basic keywords, so usually the name of your team, something that they can search and remember later to look up. Keep your area clean. This is really hard, especially if you have a lot of volunteers with you. A lot of people will show up in the morning with their coffee or a drink, and they want to put on your booth table. And unfortunately, this is a really quick way of looking sloppy and messy. So have your volunteers know, no water bottles on the table, or you can, but there's a break room over here. Go do that there. Just try and keep your area tidy. Have signage of who you are or what your schedule is, so people know as they're approaching your booth or they walk away who you are and what you're offering. So this is Quidditch, and we have try it sessions throughout the day. Something straightforward that they can read and find what they need. If you're playing with kids, consider using smaller equipment. So the full-size quaffle and bludgers are really big, and little kids have trouble holding that. So I would recommend deflating those so that they're easier to grab onto. Or if you're doing a lot of events, you could consider buying smaller balls. So we currently use these foam dodgeballs that are smaller, that are great, kids can grab them, but they were very expensive. So it might be worth your time to go to the dollar store and buy a smaller sized ball that they can use. It's something smaller that kids can hold so that they're not distracted trying to just pick up the ball and can just actually get playing. Have a sign up sheet or notepad to write something if needed. So if you are recruiting people, take down their email that you can then email them later with an event invite or information on the first practice or the actual address of the tournament that you were promoting, something that you can get back to them. I also like to bring a notepad and a pencil or paper, and that way if someone asks me a question, I can quickly write down something for them. So I can give them my email address, or if they're from out of town and they're saying like, oh, I'm from Montreal, I would love to play Quidditch, I can say, hey, this is the name of the team in your area, go check out their Facebook page. Being able to actually write something down and give to people is great. Having a notepad can also let people write down information for you. So sometimes you might be talking to other exhibitors and they're like, oh, you would love this other event that's happening later this year, and then they can give you their email or phone number to get you in contact with other events to promote Quidditch at. So have a notepad and paper and pencil to write down anything that you might want to share or might want to write down for later. After the event, thank the event organizer, especially if this is your first time working with that organizer. Thank them for including you in the event. Maybe mention something that you liked, like, hey, we appreciate the room divider. It really helped us keep from having to retrieve balls throughout the day. Similarly, you might want to mention something that was a problem for you. So thank you for having us. We loved our space. Unfortunately, I think the vendor who was positioned next to us wasn't as happy because balls did seem to keep flying in the area. If we work together again in the future, it might be worth considering putting us in a different location. So you don't want to be too negative, but it's just enough to give them a heads up that, hey, if you're thinking of including us again, this might be something to reevaluate. As well, a lot of big events will announce when they are doing, if they're doing next year's event, they'll have the date already. So they might even be able to book you to do their same event again next year. Make sure if you borrowed any equipment from teams or players that is returned to them and thanked. So did you borrow an extra dodgeball or something from another team in your neighborhood? Definitely get them back their equipment and thank them for helping out. Thank your volunteers. This is a big obvious one, but those people just spent all day or all weekend helping you. Thank them for their time. A nice way of thanking people sometimes is if you took pictures of people working your booth to post that publicly and just say like, thanks for this other team for helping us run this event. Just a way of acknowledging that you appreciated people's time. Reach out to anyone that you met at the event that you want to follow up on. So like I said, if you met people working at another booth and they told you about another event you might want to reach out to those people. Or if someone approached your booth and said, yeah, I want to join a team, here's my email address, maybe reach out to them later that week and CC the team in their area to find out when their practice is. So learn from the experience as well. It's not uncommon if it's your first event that it's not necessarily the most successful event. Maybe you were overly shy, maybe you didn't sell as much merch as you had hoped, maybe your sign-up list was not as many names as you had hoped. Learn from the experience, and especially if you had other volunteers, try and talk with them and see if there's anything that you can learn from them. So maybe you felt like, oh, I was really sad I didn't sell much merchandise, I thought I'd raise more money. But if you worked with someone else, they might say, I saw at a booth not too far away from us, they were selling similar merch and it was cheaper. So maybe our merch is priced too high, or maybe what we're selling is not the right thing for this kind of event. So learn from it and you can improve on the next one. So We have a convention coordinator with Quidditch Canada. You're welcome to reach out to him if you have questions about running your own conventions, or if you're having trouble finding an event to go to, or if you have an event but you're looking to extend it to more Quidditch Canada members to get involved with. As well, you're welcome to book an event on your own. We would appreciate a heads up just so we know what areas of the country Quidditch is being promoted in. And also, a lot of people who organize conventions and festivals and events have them in several provinces. So if we have a good contact with an event and you're trying to exhibit at their event in the other province, we might be able to help introduce you to them. So definitely reach out if you're interested in doing this, or if you're already doing this. We can share information and get better from it. I hope you learned some events that you can promote Quidditch at and why it would be beneficial to you. Good luck with your event, and let us know if we can do anything to help.